Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 7th byte-size talk. We hope you've been finding them useful so far. And if you'd like to rewatch past videos, please check out our byte-size playlist in the YouTube channel for NF Core. And also access our old slide decks through Figshare. Just look for the links in the description field for each YouTube video and on our website. So our speaker today is Phil Ewels from SciLife Lab, and his talk will be focused on making the CI tests pass. If you have any questions for Phil, please put them into the chat and I'll relay them to him at the end of his talk. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to you, Phil.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Monica. Yeah, no, it's a nice topic today. It's something that's quite close to my heart, the topic of automation and automated tests and CI continuous integration. We'll see how it goes. Today is going to be less slides and a lot more live demo, because I thought that was probably the easiest way to talk about this, was kind of by demonstrate by doing. But of course, live demos are always a bit exciting. So we'll see how it goes. You have to bear with me today. So just a quick introduction then. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. What is CI? CI stands for continuous integration. And basically that's just another way of saying automated tests. So every time we push a change to the code for a repository that has this set up, we push the change to GitHub, we do git commit, git push, and then that triggers some form of CI. And typically that will run a test and then report a status for that test, either pass or fail. The test itself is run by a dedicated service. So the ones that have kind of been most popular in the open source world certainly are ones called Travis CI, which we used to use years ago on NF Core. If you look at some of the really old pipelines, you might see a .travis CI config file. There's Circle CI, which is used quite a lot. I think Sarek might still be using that for some specific stuff. And for example, that's used by the Bioconda project heavily. And then the new kid on the block, which has not been around for so long, but which we are using within NF Core, is one called Github Actions, which is part of GitHub itself, but kind of an extra add-on feature, which is kind of opt-in. Now, these are super flexible and powerful, actually. It's not just tests. You can run all kinds of different things via CI actions. And it doesn't have to just be code change. So this is a bit of a simplification, really. We can have lots of different things on the far left of this page here. You can have code changes, you can have events such as opening a pull request or making a release, or even clicking a button on GitHub webpage if that's configured. So lots of different inputs here to trigger things. And then we can have lots of different things that run and can be tests, reporting pass or fail and doing different things, which is what we'll talk about today. But it can also be stuff like deploying to software images to Docker Hub, for example, all kinds of things. So you often hear continuous integration heard as CI/CD, where CD is continuous deployment, which is that second part. Anyway, so I started putting together these slides and I thought, how am I going to describe this? And I thought, really putting it together in slides is quite difficult. So that's pretty much the end of my slides today. We're just going to go into live demo territory. I'm hoping it's going to go better than the Tesla demo in the GIF on the right there with the bulletproof glass or whatever that was. It's probably all going to go horribly wrong, but we'll see how it goes. So here is a pipeline. This is an NF Core pipeline. We have a special one, actually, you may or may not have found by accident, which is called test pipeline. And for all intents and purposes, it behaves exactly like every other NF Core pipeline, but we can use it as a test bed to do stuff where we're checking the code, basically. And we've been working a lot with this morning just to check things. I should note, all of this, much of what I'm going to talk about revolves around the NF Core tools helper package. And we have a big release stacked up, ready to go. We were hoping to get it out last week. And we were hoping to get it out yesterday, and we were hoping to get it out this morning. It still hasn't quite happened, but any day now. As a result, the demo I'm going to be showing you will be with version 1.13 dev, which is about to become 1.13 stable. And that's why things are a little bit funny here. And then if you try and replicate what I'm doing right now with the production, with the main stable tag, it won't work, but it will hopefully, like I say, tomorrow or whenever we release this. Okay, so anyway, I've got my NF Core pipeline here, and I've done some stuff, I've made some changes, and I have updated the changelog here. I've put this in. Here is my fork of this pipeline. So you can see this is my GitHub username, and this is the pipeline, and you can see it's forked from the main one here. And I've actually just pushed my change just before the talk started. So if I go to the list of commits, you'll see the latest commit that I pushed here. And if I do git log, there you go, remove a bunch of to-do statements. So this has been pushed to GitHub, and you'll see that next to each one of the commits here in this log list is a little tick or a cross. And this is the summary of all the different tests. And I can click on this little tick wherever I see it, and I'll see a list of the different tests which I've run. And you can see here that I'm being told that some of the CI tests are not successful. Now, if I jump in here, I can actually go through to this panel, which is part of GitHub Actions, and it tells me all the different tests which are running. And now I can see a breakdown of all the different tests and whether they worked or not. The one that's jumped to is this markdown one, and this is part of a group of NF Core linting. And what this does is this check looks at all that markdown code which is written, and we validate it against a code formatting check. This is something we added a little while ago. It doesn't really matter how you do your markdown in practical terms. It renders the same when people read it, but it is really helpful for us to code in a standardized way because we have so many contributors with NF Core. It's nice if we all follow the same kind of guidelines. And so we make heavy use of what we call code linters or code formatters. And this is what we're running into here. And if you're new to NF Core, it's very likely that you'll hit this if you haven't used them before, because you'll just add something to the changelog, it'll look fine to you, and then you'll push it and you'll see a test failing. And so what this test does is it runs a command called markdown lint, which is a package on NPM, which you can install yourself. And you can see with actions, I can see all the different stages of this, and the bit that's failed is run, and I can see the command that's run. So I can run this locally if I want to, and it should give me exactly the same output. And you can see that it says on this file, changelog, line 6, which is here. And it says there's something wrong with this rule in this linting tool, where it says headings should be surrounded by blank lines. Fair enough. Now, you can write Markdown or YAML or these other linters that we have and just see if it fails and then fix it manually, but that's kind of a bit dull. So what I would really recommend is to either set these up on the command line yourself. This Markdown lint, all these tools have options to fix these things in place. But even better is to install plugins which are part of your browser. So I have a plugin for VS Code, which is what I'm using here, which does the Markdown linting. In fact, that's why I have this wiggly line along here, because it says there's something wrong with it. But best of all, it has a automatic formatting built in. So if I save this file, it fixes it for me automatically. I didn't need to do anything. And so once you have your environment set up like this, all of this code linting, you just kind of forget about, and it just always works. Because every time you hit save, it automatically fixes everything for you. So I really recommend setting this up. And quite very recently, we've actually, for VS Code users, we've set this extension pack up together, which has a bunch of included extensions, which we recommend. And you can see that one of them is called Markdown Lint. So if you just type in NF Core into VS Code package, you'll find this, install it and activate all the things. And one of them will be Markdown Lint, and then you'll get this kind of magic behavior. Okay, so that's fixed. If I go back, go to the status, and I can do the GIF, changelog, and there you go. There's my extra white line, white space. Fix Markdown Lint. Let's push that change, and we'll see if that makes everything happy. I'll go back to my pipeline. Now I can click on actions here, and I'll just see everything that runs, and you can see that this is a new action run. Running here, named after the commit, or I can go to the little status icon next to the commits itself, and you can see this is still running at the moment. But I can click on it and I can see it running in real time. So I'm going to sit here, it's just installed Markdown Lint, it ran Markdown Lint, and there was no output, which is a good thing. And now I have a little green tick next to Markdown. So we have solved problem number 1. So that's the first class of continuous integration tests that we have is code linting. Markdown, YAML, they're all the same. Set it up in your code editor and forget about it. If you're writing with NF Core tools, there's one for Python as well, which is called Black, but they all do the same thing. Now, there's some other tests that we run though, which are not quite as trivial. And probably the most important one is the NF Core one, which is a handwritten one that we've built ourselves for the NF Core community. And this has been around since the start of NF Core. And really what we realized was so many pipelines, it was almost impossible to manually check that everyone was adhering to all the guidelines and doing the best practices exactly as we wanted, because it was just too easy to miss stuff. So like I say, we like automation. So we built a tool which checks your code in your pipeline. And we update this continuously. And that means every time there's a new release of a template, it will come with new tests. And probably as soon as we push this new release, everyone who's a pipeline developer here, your CI test will immediately start failing until you've updated your pipeline. And that's what we want. So here you can see that the pipeline has run this test. And again, it's failed here. And I can click on it and we can see the results. Now, again, this is a command line tool. You can see the command it ran here. So I can also run this locally. If I go to the pipeline and do NF Core Lint and give it the pipeline directory, which is, I'm in that current directory, so it's just dot. And we run it, it runs all the checks, does a few things about conda packages and things, figures that out. And we get the same results here. Now, I recommend running this locally if you have any problems, or even if you don't, just to check. One of the really nice things is that the output here has interactive hyperlinks built into it. So if I hold command, I'm on a Mac, if you're using Linux or Windows, hold down Control, you can see that all of these are actual links. So if I want to find out more about what this is, we'll see if this link works. I haven't checked. There we go. It takes me to an NF Core website, web page about this specific type of test. Okay, we've updated this, so the soft link didn't work. But you can see long documentation about all of the different NF Core tests that we have here. This is something we've just rebuilt extensively in this release, is how all this automatic linting works. But you can go to the NF Core website and you can figure out all of the reasoning behind each test and how to fix it, because some of them are not super obvious. So if we go through this step by step, there's some stuff here which is brand new for this release, which is nice to talk about as well. So the bottom up, we have some stuff. We have a lot of tests passed, which is great, which is green. Hidden by default, there's a flag if you actually wanted to see every single test that passed, but most of the time you don't care. There are some warnings, so stuff which we kind of like, okay, this conda package is outdated. There's a newer version available. Maybe you want to update multi-QC, version 1.10 came out a few days ago, just so it's like automatically telling you stuff that we think you probably should fix, but it's not super critical. And when you create a new pipeline, you'll see lots about these to-do strings. Need to speed up. So these are all things which are not going to give you a little red cross, but it's good for you to kind of sort out if possible and at least cut that list down as small as possible. Something new in this version of tools is we have the ability to ignore lint tests, which is a very much requested feature. So I actually have a file in the root of my pipeline here. If I do ls-a to see all the hidden files, and I can do cat.nfcore lint. And you can see I've specified in this config file for NF Core tools that the lint test, which is called files unchanged, should ignore this specific file. And that's great because I've edited this and this would be failing. But instead it's recognized this and it's ignored this file from this test. And you can do this you can fully ignore any lint test now, and you can customize which parts of certain tests, such as which files to ignore on that level for quite a lot of them. So this is really powerful, especially if you're using NF Core tools, but you're doing your own pipeline, which has got nothing to do with NF Core. Okay, and you can see the problem here, then the reason that I got the little cross is that something failed, and you can see there's a test called files unchanged, which checks whether files match the template. And it says that something has been edited in this file, and basically this file shouldn't be touched, so that's wrong. One of my favorite new features for this version of the release is NF Core Lint now has a ---- fix, which is going to save everyone so much time. So before you would have had to read the documentation, go and look in the template, see what it should look like and try and fix all that yourself. But now I can just say, okay, I want to fix this test called files unchanged. I run linting again. And this time it's going to not only spot them, but fix them. I don't have any tests failing now. And you can see I fixed this test. And if I do git status, you can see it's actually modified one of these files. And if I do git diff, you can see I had this extra line that I'd written in here, and it's deleted this line. So now it's matching the template and everything works. Now, if I commit this, push it, hopefully our little green red cross will turn to a green tick for the NF core tools. You can see that I could have also fixed the Conda updates, which is just like a nice fast way to update all of the different Conda packages. But I chose not to do that this time, but you can. This only works when you have no changes on your Git repository. So, and then that means it will make whatever changes it can. It can be quite aggressive, but if you don't like it, you can always undo it again by checking out the old code. So if I do update, if I do update this this test, it gets rid of all of those warnings about Conda packages. You can see it's modified my environment file. Oh. So you can see it's updated all these packages. Maybe I'm like, I'm not so sure about this. I can always just do git checkout environment, and then I haven't lost anything. Okay, we go back to here. Let's see this latest test and see if it works. I'm running a little bit over time. Fantastic, we've got a little green tick, green across the board, that's what we like. Some little extra things that might be useful. You can see there's a button up here for some of these tests. So there isn't for the markdown linting, or maybe it's okay, it's across all of them. And it has automatically saved the verbose log file from the linting run. So if you can't figure something out or you need extra information, try downloading this. It's a massive log file, but that is spitting out lots of debug messages about how NF Core Tools is running, and that might help you debug a little bit. Anyway, we've got all green tests there, so let's open up a pull request. We'll go to the head pipeline. Go to my fork, create pull request. Don't just delete all this, you should actually fill it in and stuff. But you know, this is a live demo. And I'm going to create a new pipeline, a new pull request. Now, what I deliberately put in here was a merge conflict because it's something that happens quite often. I said that tests can run on different event types. So the ones we've been looking at are push pull requests, and there's also pull request. And so when you open a pull request, you'll have tests running on both push and pull request. But if you have a merge conflict, nothing will run on a pull request. So you need to fix all the merge conflicts before the test will run. Now, you'll see when I was talking, something else magic happened, and we had little actions, GitHub Actions automated comment pop up. I made another deliberate mistake when I opened this pull request where I opened it against the master branch. Now, with NF Core pipelines, we have only the stable released code on master, because that's the one that's by default pulled. So it should have gone to dev, the development branch. But it's really easy to mess that up because it's a default, and it happens a lot. So we get a nice little comment saying, well, hang on, one of the tests here failed. There's an automated test to check it went. So I got a red cross and I got a little comment saying, this is what happened, this is what's gone wrong. You don't need to close and then open your pull request again. You can just hit edit, change that to dev, change base, and we're all good now. This comment won't go away, but we can just hide it, say it's resolved. And also this little red cross will not disappear until I push a new commit. But I need to resolve a conflict anyway, so let's just do that quickly. If I go to the repository, so I have, if I look at my remote, so I've got my fork set up as a remote called origin, and I've got the main NF Core one set up as upstream, so I could do git pull upstream master, and it tells me that I have a merge conflict. Now, if I hop into VS Code, which is here, you can see the merge conflicts and changelog. And sure enough, there's two lines which have been added kind of in parallel, and Git doesn't know how to merge them both, but it's just in a changelog. We want both of these, so I can click accept both. Notice there's some differences in the markdown styles here. Hopefully, if I hit save, there you go, it solves that. Now I can go back. Yep. Fix merge conflict. This will do several things. It's fixing a merge conflict, so the pull request test will run. It's also pushing a new change after I changed the target branch to dev. So the target branch test should now be passing. And we'll see how much other stuff is green. This is the point where I suspect that we won't get green across the board because running on the development version of the NF Core tools, and I think we didn't quite manage to scrape up every single test. But hopefully by the time you run this, you will get all green tests at this point. I'm just going to running quite badly over, but the one that's going to fail, we've talked about the linting of the code. So there's the markdown test that we fixed earlier. This is the NF Core code linting, which we fixed after that. And the one test I haven't talked about is actually running workflow tests. So every NF Core pipeline has a way you can run it where you do next flow run pipeline name, and then you do -profile test. And that runs the pipeline with a very tiny test data set, which is downloaded from the web dynamically by Nextflow. Now, basically, every single time you push or open a pull request, this test profile will be run. And that just runs the Nextflow pipeline and checks that it doesn't crash and picks up a bunch of kind of potential problems here. I'd forgotten here that also these tests are quite intelligent. They check whether you have changed anything in the environment, the Docker file or the Conda environment or anything like that. If you have, then it will build a new Docker image before running the pipeline. And if you haven't, it will just pull it from Docker Hub, which is a lot quicker. So we have to wait for this now to build a new Docker image, which might take too much time. But after that, you can see it's going to install Nextflow, and then it will just run the pipeline and check that it exits with a successful exit code. So that's something else you need to make sure is obviously passing, and that's again something you can run locally. Okay, but you can see the linting's all green, and hopefully when these guys finish, they would end up green. I think actually they probably won't, so I'm going to move away before that happens. And when everything has gone green, oh, there we go. We've also, this is something I fixed for this release, so you should start getting now, is that when NF Core lint runs on pull requests, you'll automatically get a comment with those, which is great because we don't have any failures here. So this gave a little green tick, and it'd be very easy to not go into a log and see all the warnings. But here we can get a summary here, and we can see how actually we had some warnings. So this helps make those more visible, and hopefully you can kind of solve those warnings a bit easier. So you've got some nice rendering of those same results. Okay, when that all goes to green, you get this green across the board, and then you'll need to get a pull request approval, and then you'll be able to tick this and merge it because everything will be green. And that's your continuous integration tests fixed. Right. We have Slack. Anyone who's seen any NF Core talks before will know we go on and on about Slack, and many of you are super familiar with this, I know. So like everything, there's a Slack channel for it. There's a Slack channel for linting, which is where to go to get help if you're hitting any problems with your pipeline with NF Core lint tests or anything else, getting any of these tests to pass. So don't suffer in silence. Come and ask for help if you need it. Don't forget that next week we have our hackathon, which I'm very much looking forward to. This is why I'm looking a bit sleep deprived, because we're trying to get this release out before the hackathon, so you can use lots of lovely new tools, which I'm very excited about. But if you haven't already, please sign up. There's still time, and come and join us and have a play with all these NF Core tools. And with that, happy to wrap up. And if anyone has any questions, please shout.